Welcome to the show, everybody. Today we have a good old friend of mine, Drew Beckie from Atletico Soccer from Ottawa. And I wanted to bring Drew on because I've known him I think we've known each other for 8 years, Drew. And you're now back in the city of Ottawa where you belong. And we had a good experience working with you with the Ottawa Fury. And I wanted to bring you on because you have quite the story as a professional athlete. You've played 12 years of soccer. You've traveled all over the world and you've gone through obviously the usual athletes ups and downs, but you've had some health challenges that happened to you. And I want to talk about how you have made the transition from being a player to a suit. Drew, why don't you give us a little bit of a background of your soccer career in Canada and US and all over the world?
Yeah, I spent a lot of my time in the U.S. for most of my career. That's MLS. There used to be a league called the North American Soccer League, which the Ottawa Fury was in, the USL Championship. I spent some time in Sweden and obviously here in Canada. I went to the University of Denver. Right? When I was 15, 16 years old, I played for the Vancouver Whitecaps residency program. And at that time, they're really pushing young Canadians to playing with the national team at the time to move over to Germany to get a professional contract, and I had pursued that. But in the back of my mind, and nagging at me was my mother. Hey, you need to get an education if something happens. And at the time, I think I was making $1,000 a month, and because I was under 18, the money went to my mother, so that helped. It was great, but $1,000 a month is not going to get the job done later in life. It was a great start. I learned a lot during my time there, very regimented schedule that the Germans have. But at the end, I felt that it was best to go to keep my amateurism, try to keep my amateurism. That was another story. To get into the NCAA, and that's what I ended up doing. I played 3 years at the University of Denver, and then I went into the Major League Soccer with the Columbus Crew for a couple of years. Joined the Ottawa Fury, went to a bunch of different teams over the next 7 years, spent some time in Finland and Sweden, and ended my career with Atletico Ottawa in Canada.
And now you are with the club as head of development. Good on them to keep you here because we can't have talent like you leave to go to other teams, Drew, right?
Well, I appreciate that, but it was an easy decision to stay on. It's a great club. It's very well run. We're very well funded by our sister club in Madrid, and there's a lot of work to be done here on the soccer side in Canada, right? We have exciting men's and women's national teams, but the infrastructure that we need to get to is not there at the moment, and that's what part of my job is.
I want to kind of dive into some of the health habits that you've been through, because when I remember working with you, you were probably the leanest and the most muscular guy on the whole team, right? And in terms of health regimes, what are 3 things that you feel that when you were an athlete, obviously you traveled all over the world and you got to see different types of clubs and nutritional regimens. What are 3 things that you did as an athlete that you feel really helped your career be a successful 12 years?
Well, one is first and foremost, I think it's just controlling your environment. That's your routine. That's your ability, your timing of your meals. That's understanding what time, building back from when your training is. That all encompasses recovery, training, games, all those things. So if you know you're playing at a Saturday night at 7 p.m., I work back from there, and I would set up my days to say, hey, I needed X amount of. I didn't really look at the number of calories per day. I didn't look at that number because I was playing. I knew I was burning a lot, so I kind of ate as much as I wanted, but I knew I was eating. I had to eat the right things, and that was a big plate of veg, starches, meats. Those 3 main things were big for me, and I knew if I had those on a consistent basis, alongside what the club was providing, that I knew I was, I didn't figure all this out until later in my career, right? So it's an ever learning process. But as long as you were attempting to have a routine, that was big for me, and it still is as I'm retired. Second one was sense of community, right? Being around the guys, understanding, being and learning from other people like yourself, right? When you were with us at the Fury, you guys had such a great regimen for us, knowing that we could leave the training with food. We had the best part of what you guys provided was those protein pucks, or the fruit pucks that you gave to us. I don't know if you remember those.
Oh, yeah.
The energy pucks. I haven't seen that replicated anywhere else in my career, so I need to get that from you. Those 2 big things were first and foremost the sense of community and the routine. That was the biggest 2 parts. The third part, if I had to give you one, would just be the discipline to continue 1 and 2. It's easy to do one thing for 1 week or 10 days, but then to do it again, right? Someday maybe you might be tired from training. You don't want to go to Costco. You don't want to go to Real Canadian to get the stuff to really cook. But as an athlete, I don't think you have an excuse that you don't have time, right? You're working at most 4 to 6 hours a day, at your training, doing your recovery. You have the time to put it in the evening or plan on a Sunday after a game. So there's that for me is that there's no excuse to do all those three things.
I say that to my clients a lot of times too, and I got that from working with athletes, is your body is your business. And I think that overplays to a lot of everyday mentality as well, because a lot of people are trying to get their job done, be good parents, trying to exercise, and everything you look at in terms of goals that clients have told us that they're looking to achieve is better health, more wealth, and more life experiences. So it's kind of like your body is your business to achieve all of those goals. Now, you I think it was 2017, went through a big health scare, right? You got the virus that attacked your heart and you had myocarditis. So what are some of the things that when that happened, because you weren't in Canada at that point or the US, you were in Sweden. And what are some of the things that you used to get yourself through a challenge like that, right? Because we hear of people going through some type of health challenge every day. What are some of one or two, three things that you could help somebody else, that something that you use that was very successful for you as a tool that helped you get through that big health scare at that moment in your life where you're probably the healthiest you've ever been, right?
Yeah, that was definitely the biggest part, as you just said there. I felt I was the healthiest. I was training every day. I was eating well. It was something that I had to revert back as a player to then attack what I was going through in that moment, was controlling what you can control. And that wasn't easy at first, right? Because I didn't have a lot of concrete answers as to what was going on. I didn't have concrete answers of what was the recovery process. How am I going to do this in a foreign country? Where do I need to go to get the best treatment? It was just trying to go day by day and understanding, okay, this is what I can control today. This is what I'm eating today. And then tomorrow will take care of itself. And that's not just a pat on the back to me. It's just, I learned it as I went through it. And hopefully if somebody, which God forbid anybody goes through those three things, but in life, right, that things will happen. Being able to sit back and say, okay, I have these people around me that are supporting me. I have the doctors. I have to listen to what they're saying. I have to digest it. Then I have to compartmentalize what I can do in that specific moment with the energy that I have to then take the next step. And little by little, those steps had compounding results. And I was able to come back to play, right, when I was probably told that I couldn't. And that's not a miracle. That's just something that, thanks to God, it did happen. And if it didn't, I was ready to say, okay, I'm done with that part of my life. I can move on. I have an education. I understand a different part of the game. I could be in the game. I could go be a plumber. Whatever it was, the game wasn't that important to me where I was going to say, oh, I have nothing else I can do in my life. I never felt that way when I was playing. And I think that's important for people to understand, is whatever you're doing in your exact moment, you can figure out how to do something else. If push comes to shove, you can figure out how to do something else. It's the same with eating. It's the same with routines. It's the same with working out. It's a decision that you have to make every single day. And the more you make that decision, the easier it becomes.
So what did you do on those low days? I mean, we're getting the clip of the highlight of Drew over that sickness. What are some of the things that you use to give you that mental fortitude? Like, what did you do on those low days where you said, because there's going to be day, like, in an 20 hour day or an 18-hour day that you're awake, you go through the highs and lows. So what's one strategy that you used when you felt low to get yourself back, kind of head shock, get it back on track?
Yeah, well, I went from being very active, right, playing full games, to nothing. Don't lift a grocery bag, don't lift anything, don't ride the bike, don't, just walk. And that was very difficult for me. So to try and combat that, I tried to maybe learn something. I'd sit, I did a lot of time on YouTube trying to learn something. I studied finance and criminology in university, but to be honest with you, I never really had much of an interest in those two things. Criminology more, but you can't really make a career out of learning the theory of crime. So I tried to focus on the finance. I got my license to sell insurance in Florida. I was in Florida, so I was actually pretty spoiled at the hospital I was at. So I could go to the beach. I could sit in the nice weather. I was soaking up the vitamin D. That really helped a lot, which I don't think I ever had that in being from Saskatchewan, living here in Ottawa, other parts of the world. You didn't you didn't have that sun, right? So just tried to focus on everything else. And again, it goes back to I had a great support group. So I tried to lean on those two things.
So you use the environment. So you walked outside, you got just
Yeah.
sunlight. So obviously your intensity of exercise changed, but it sounds like you still went for walks. You still got the sun. Now, at that point, did your diet change? Did you have to make shifts to your diet?
Not particularly, no. Since it was a virus, it had to run its course, and to mitigate some of the damage, I did some experimental treatment at a hospital. But other than that, no, I kept a similar diet. I lost a lot of weight. I probably lost about 35 pounds,
Oh,
just
wow.
in terms of from being in the hospital for a long time. Not They didn't really give me a lot of food in the first 2 weeks because they didn't know what was going on. And not the sense that they didn't feed me, but I was more intravenous. And so that sense, it took a bit to get my weight back, and I couldn't just start eating as I was before. So me being a thin guy already, right, I got down to like 145 pounds. I'm usually 180, 185, and I
Yeah.
got down almost, 40 pounds. So I had to build back. How am I going to do this? Am I going to have the same? I couldn't eat the same amount of calories because it would have just accelerated my weight. But again, I have a fast metabolism, so I wasn't really worried about that. I tried to eat a lot of vegetables. I was working with an innovative doctor there. Her name's Dr. Pouts, more on the homeopathic side, the holistic side. My father had done that during his cancer treatment, so I had a connection there, and she really gave me some great ideas and counseling and working through the issues. And that was important, right, too, because it is a trauma on the physical side, but it's also a trauma on the emotional side, as you spoke about too. So working through that is important, and I think that can't be understated in your full 360 view of health and what maybe some of your patients are going through. Is that
So what you're
dealing
saying
with
is you
those things.
really took a lot of those, what you just told us about, what are the three things that helped your career? You still kept community. You
Yeah.
found alternative treatments. You found other types of practitioners that would support you through mentally and emotionally through that process to get you
Mhm.
back. And so what from the time you got diagnosed to the time that you were back on the field, right? Because you came back, right?
Mhm.
This is
Mhm. Mhm.
amazing. How long did that take you? What was that time period?
I was in was in the hospital in Sweden from December 2017 till about the new year. So I then returned to play in July of that next year, so 2018. So it took about eight months, 8 months. And so I didn't get to exercise for 6 of those 8. And luckily a club took a chance on me after understanding all they went through, and I was able to come back and play, and my body somehow adapted, right? But doing the compounding things and keeping the routine kept me in a good enough shape that I was able to do that. Looking back, I probably pushed it a little bit too much. I could have pushed the horizon out to a year, but again, your body can do amazing things, and I think that's important that people understand that too, is that your body is capable of those credible things, and you can push yourself, right? When you're at that moment of not feeling like, oh, I can't go anymore, you probably still have another 60%, something ridiculous, right? And we all have been in those moments where, oh man, I could puke right now, or I could be done, but you can keep going. So
And were you starting to train back with the team? So you have that community of people helping you, supporting you around you at that point?
yeah, that's I think if you nail the number one thing is the community, is surrounding yourself with like-minded people going in the same direction. I think in our generation we're starting to get a little bit more secluded. Loneliness is creeping in, not being around enough people. I gain energy from being around people. Now I enjoy my time alone. I think that's important, but it's also I have to, like right now I do CrossFit. I had to keep that community when I was done training. I know we'll talk about that, but I don't have to talk about soccer with them. I don't have to talk about my work. I can just go, I can hear what they're doing, and we can do a good workout together. And it's quick, it's an hour, and you're pushing each other. It's really, quite difficult workouts, but it's something new and something I needed to be pushed in, right? I wasn't getting that anymore as a professional. So now in my work, or I'm sitting at the desk, or I'm sitting at home in front of these two monitors, it's so new for me that it took me a long time to transition. And so I had to seek out other things to keep me going.
So so that, that's actually a great topic is when you tell me about community, I always, as I get older and I work with more people, one thing I've noticed is that when they're trying to change their health, their environment is actually a bigger factor in their change of their health, right? Because their mindset's good, they're motivated. But then when they go out with their friends, they're like, "I'll just have a beer or just eat junk food. Why are you doing that?" And I think that what you're saying is great. Is that quote they say is, "You're only as good as the 5 people you hang around with." Really does, as I find as I get older, it really does make the difference in your day. And being around professional athletes who are driven, it obviously was great for you at that time, because some of them may say, "Okay, Drew, you had this, but we're not going to treat you like that, the guy who had the virus. We're just going to be like, hey, you're another player. We're here for you. We're going to help you. If you need to take a break, it's all good. But to us, you're coming on, and we're going to just push you. And we're going to be there for you. We want to make sure that you're comfortable." And I think you need that sometimes, right?
Yeah,
That just that pill of like, I'm no different. They're not treating me any different. Good. I'm not going to become my diagnosis. And I feel like you had that mental fortitude and the community to be like, that was your diagnosis last year. Today, you're going to be the next guy that comes back. So that's awesome. And so what are some of the things that you've changed now? So obviously going from a player to a suit, what are 3 things that, sorry, I'm not going to say 3 things, but what are some of the things that you've had to change or adapt in terms of your nutrition and your exercise? Have you changed any of your regime from being a player to a suit?
No, those traits or characteristics, or for lack of a better word, that came in this transition from a professional to what I'm doing now, I try to keep as many as possible. Now, it's not as realistic in some capacity, right? My hours are different. What I'm doing is different. I was very selfish as a player, and I mean that in the best way. I missed a lot of weddings. I missed friends' things. I missed my stuff with my sisters, right? Those type of things. I couldn't travel to go to those things because I was making a choice to be ready for. I was honoring my contract. I was playing, right? And that's just the way it is. But that sense of selfishness, yeah, it has to go away now. I'm differing in my communication with people, right? On the field, maybe I could get up somebody's backside a little bit and push them and say a few choice words, and we kill that issue in that moment. You can't do that in the office. Not to say that's a bad thing. It's different. But nutritionally, I've been the exact same. So I've indulged in a few more things nowadays. Maybe I like the chips. I'm more of a salty guy, so I indulge a little bit there. But the routine has been the same. I transitioned. We had a great physio, a friend of mine that was from Spain on the team last year, and he got me into CrossFit. And I was really against it for a long time. Not to say the competing aspect of CrossFit, but being able to move weight around quickly and to get stronger was something that I needed to do. I had a knee injury last year that was a part of my reason for retirement. And I've really fixed that issue, right? Where I thought, oh, you got to have surgery, you got to fix this. It's a structural issue. No, I could fix it by strengthening the aspects around the knee. And so those type of things were very good. And I still continue to do those things.
Do you still eat properly, right? So you're still eating the protein, the veg, and the starches at every meal. How many times a week are you training now? So before, obviously, you'd probably do about 12 sessions a week, right? As a player, how many sessions are you getting in weekly now?
It depends, maybe 5 to 7. That's a lot because the workouts are quite intense. So I've seen in some of my blood work, I've actively doing blood work twice a year, just with my heart and other things. And my creatinine level has gone super high.
Okay.
And so not to say that's bad, but you can see the degradation of the muscles in a different way that I didn't have when I was playing. And that's normal, right? That's just totally different way of working out. I had to recraft the body in a different way. And I like how I feel right now. I enjoy this type of my body now, more muscular, heavier. I feel much better than when I was playing. I think people have a fallacy with professional athletes is they're always happy playing the sport. That's not true. There are some days where I was like, damn, I really don't want to play this game. You get to the game, oh, we got to do it. And that's the same with anything. Like, I don't want to do this job. I don't want to show up today. And that happens in sport too, a lot. But anyways, yeah, I'm in a good spot with this workout regime. I'm with my partner. We do a lot of prepping for our meals. We also have done where we've ordered the meals for the week. I can't remember the name.
Like which companies you use? Ottawa Meal Prep. There's Macro, there's Chibis, there's Flavored. There's a whole bunch.
We used Vital for a while.
Yeah, Vital's great.
Vital's great. And then we tried, oh gosh, what's the one you can order in the box? It's more mainstream now.
HelloFresh.
Thank you, HelloFresh. Yes, we've done that, and I've liked that. And then we supplement on the side.
Yeah.
Right. I could spend all my salary on eating, on food. And I know in Canada we're struggling with those food prices, so I can feel that. But you can, if you budget it right, you can eat quite well. Just don't spend on other things. So that's where I'm at right now. We spend all our money on food and training, and it's good because it keeps my brain right for the work that I have to do because it can be stressful.
So give a shout out to your CrossFit box.
Hintonburg CrossFit is the best. Come see Connor Oakley. He's has the toughest workouts in town. That's what he likes to be known by. So it's here in Wellington and in Hintonburg. So come on out.
Awesome. And so what are 3 things that you do every day for health? And that could be mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, physical health. What are 3 non-negotiables that you do on a daily basis for your health?
I have to go to bed before 10. So I'm in bed at 9:45 and sometimes I'm up at 5. I'm up sometimes I'm 5:30 or 6. That's non-negotiable for me. I have to get that sleep or else I'm quite miserable.
Okay.
That goes along with the training schedule. So I have to train, whether it's not every day I'm in the CrossFit gym, but I'm going for a walk or I go for a run with my partner, just doing something active. If not, I'm pretty miserable. And 3 is I fast until noon. So I sleep the whole night and I fast until noon. I'll have my coffee in the morning, but I felt better now. I couldn't do that as a player, but I fast until noon and I have all my meals. Everybody's different, right? But for me, I found having my meals between 12 and 8, I feel good. I feel full. Yeah, good.
And so how many meals would you eat though? Are you probably eating 3, 4 meals? You're not just trying to eat 2?
Yeah. Sometimes, sometimes maybe 5. It's all portioned out, or I'll have a couple eggs around. Well, it depends on what the day is, right? I'm very hybrid. I'm sometimes at the stadium, sometimes I'm running around. If I'm at home, I'll cook a couple eggs and have some. You're the one that taught me long ago, just have a meat patty with your eggs or whatever, getting the protein and it burns throughout the day. Try to stay away from the flour. It doesn't work well for me unless I make my own tortillas or my own bread. It's okay then, but I try to stay away from those as much as possible.
So you're fasting, but you're not doing it as a calorie deficit. You just feel better, but you're still eating your total caloric load for the day by eating 3 or 4 meals. You're not just trying to eat lunch and dinner and saying, I'm going to survive.
No.
Yeah. I'm going to eat in this window and I feel better, but you're not doing a calorie for weight loss or anything like that.
Just nothing for weight loss. Yeah, I feel better. I'm able to keep on the weight. For whatever reason, I'm able to keep my weight up better if I'm eating in that window. Again, it's specific to each person. Everybody can take little tidbits from everything, but that's how it works for me.
Now, moving towards the future, I really wanted to ask you this question because obviously you being around the world and being around younger athletes, they look up to you. I remember being at the stadium, everybody looks up to Drew, right? And you have a very good presence and you're a part of like soccer legacy in Canada. And what are a couple of things that you would recommend to the younger soccer athlete who wants to be a pro that you would recommend health-wise? What are 1 or 2 things that you wished you would have done younger that you would have said, I wished I started? Or what is just something that you've seen with the younger generation that they should be working on more? What are 1 or 2 tips that you could give that next generation athlete?
A bit concerned with this generation in the usage of the phone. And I mean that just one as comparing yourself as a player, a young player, with what you see on Instagram, what you see on Twitter or Facebook. Anybody can put out highlights, anybody can edit footage. That comparison to where they're at versus where this guy is, and then going out on the field, and not to say that it's bad trying to emulate that type of player if it's a top level player, but I see players here in Canada, specifically on the development side, because that's my mandate from Madrid, is to create the infrastructure going forward for, what does an academy look like? How can we help the community clubs? How can we identify the talent? I see that they strive to go play for Manchester United. They strive to play for Arsenal, whatever it is, Real Madrid. That's great, shooting for the stars. Go play for Atletico Madrid, our owner. But the reality is we're so far behind in development that's 99.9% chance that's not going to happen. We have the talent, but how do we cultivate it? So being able to be rooted to the ground foundationally, doing the right things, as in getting enough sleep, staying off the phone, which can be just ridiculous, this day and age, and getting your homework done, all those little things compound into a right routine to then go to training, have the right mentality, and to not become arrogant, right? We had some kids that were part of our development program have gone back to their respective clubs and have a different attitude, which wasn't so good. All those things combined, I would change. I was lucky, right? We didn't grow up really with something like this where it was instantaneous information. Not to say it's a bad thing, but it's also not a good thing. I was around great people in the academies that I was at. I was around the national team, so there was a demand. The level of play, or the atmosphere and the environment, demanded a level of professionalism and play that I don't think a lot of kids are getting right now. And that's where
Okay.
the infrastructure comes in. It's the same, keeping the discipline within an environment equals, I say with the academy my sister have, we confidence leads to execution, then you just repeat it. Right? That's the big thing that we say. We're creating confidence through repetition. Repetition equals confidence. It goes all together. So in that repetition, it works in every part of life. So that's what we're trying to implement, and that's what my job is in a nutshell.
So basically you're saying focus on the basics, focus
Yeah.
on good technique with the ball. Don't try to be the highlight reel, show up
Mhm.
on time, be respectful, do your
Have a
work,
good attitude. Yeah,
have a
all those
great
things.
mindset,
Yeah.
and don't get, don't try to be the highlight reel every game. Just do the basics to be a good community guy.
Yeah,
Awesome.
professionals week in, week out, and you see this in the AHL, you see this in the NBA, you see this in the NFL, or the guys that are 6, 7, and 8 out of 10 every week.
Yeah.
It's not the guy that's a 10 out of 10 one week, then he's a 2. It's the 6, 7, and 8. And that's the hardest thing to do in life. That's the hardest thing to do in professional sport. And then consistently do it for many years and repeat it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really great. I'm sure a lot of parents would like to hear that whole cell phone thing. So we'll be sure to make that into a clip. This has
Good.
been great. I really appreciate you taking the time. I love that you are open to sharing your personal stories with your health and everything you've done to be a great athlete and now taking over the team in Ottawa. So I appreciate your time. Where can anybody find Drew Beckie? Where do kids get to know about your academy?
Well, we're trying to bring it here to Canada and be nationwide. That's in the works. But you can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram at Drew Beckie, my first and last name. I don't put too much stuff on Instagram, but I'll share stuff with the team. Twitter, I like to put out stuff with development and how the community is changing on the soccer side. So if you want to follow along there, you can also go to our website, atleticottawa.com, and find out all information about the team. It's growing. It's going to be here for the long term, and we're excited about what's happening in this city and across Canada.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Harry.
Have a good day.